Part 1. I never imagined I would have to beg my own child to stay alive. The doctor didn't try to soften it. He closed the file, looked at me carefully, and said, "Mr. Carter, you need surgery within 2 weeks. Without it, you won't make it to the end of the month." The room suddenly felt smaller. I was 68 years old. I had survived layoffs, the death of my wife, and years of working double shifts at the factory. But now a simple number stood between me and death: $4,200. I had $312 in my bank account. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at my phone for nearly an hour. I hated asking for help. My entire life, I had been the one people depended on. But there was only one person who could realistically help me: my son, Daniel. Daniel was successful, very successful. Big house, luxury car, expensive vacations every year. I used to brag about him to my neighbors. "My boy made it," I would say proudly. With shaking hands, I finally called him. He picked up after a few rings. "Hey Dad, make it quick. I'm busy." My voice felt dry. "Son, I need help." There was silence on the line. "The doctor says I need surgery. Soon. It's not too expensive. Just $4,200. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious." Another pause. Then I heard water and laughter in the background. Music. People talking. "Dad," he sighed, almost annoyed. "This really isn't a good time." I swallowed. "I don't have anyone else." His tone changed. Not softer, colder. "I just bought a boat last week. I'm stretched thin right now." For a moment I thought I misheard. "A boat?" "Yeah," he said casually. "Dream purchase. You know how hard I worked for this? I can't just throw money around. Maybe check insurance or something." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Daniel," I whispered, "I might die." He went quiet for 2 seconds, then said the words I will never forget. "Dad, everyone has problems. I can't fix yours." And he hung up. I sat there staring at the silent phone. No anger. No shouting. Just emptiness. The son I had raised, fed, protected, and sacrificed for had chosen a boat over my life. I didn't cry. I simply put the phone down and accepted that I was going to die alone. But 20 minutes later, someone knocked on my door. Ere before Part 2. If this story touched you even a little, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us who truly stands beside us when life tests us the most. Because what was waiting outside my door was something I never expected. Part 2. I wasn't expecting anyone. At that hour, my small house was usually silent. The neighborhood slept early, and most nights the only sound I heard was the ticking of the old wall clock and the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. The knock came again. Soft, but urgent. I slowly stood up, my knees aching, and walked to the door. For a second, a foolish thought crossed my mind. Maybe Daniel came back. Maybe he regretted what he said. I opened the door. It wasn't my son. It was my daughter, Emily. She stood there slightly out of breath, her hair messy, still wearing her work uniform from the grocery store. In her hands was a small paper envelope. Her eyes immediately filled with tears the moment she saw my face. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" I froze. How did you? I called Daniel to ask about you, she said quickly. He told me everything. And then he laughed. He said you were being dramatic. My chest tightened. Emily stepped inside without waiting and closed the door behind her. She looked around the house, the same worn sofa, the same cracked coffee table, the same place she grew up in, and then looked back at me. You were just going to die quietly, weren't you? She whispered. I couldn't answer, because she was right. She grabbed my hands and pushed the envelope into them. Here. I opened it slowly. Inside was cash. Not a few bills. Stacks. Emily. My voice shook. What is this? It's $1,100, she said. My heart sank. Sweetheart, the surgery costs $4,200. I know, she nodded. I sold my laptop, my TV, and my savings jar. I'm working extra shifts. I'll get the rest. I promise. I stared at her. Emily barely made enough to cover rent. She took the bus to work. Her shoes were worn at the soles. Yet she was standing in front of me ready to sacrifice everything. Without hesitation. Emily, no. I can't take this. She grabbed my shoulders firmly. You took care of me my whole life, she said, tears running down her cheeks. You skipped meals when we were kids so we could eat. You walked to work in winter because you couldn't afford gas. And now you think I'll let you die over money. My vision blurred. For the first time that night, I cried. Not because I was dying, but because the child who had the least gave the most. I hugged her tightly. I'm sorry, I whispered. For what? For thinking I was alone. She pulled back slightly and smiled through tears. You're not alone, Dad. You never were. But neither of us knew that the next morning, someone unexpected would walk into my hospital room and Daniel's world was about to change forever. Part 3. Something happens at the hospital that none of us saw coming. Part 3. The next morning, Emily insisted on taking me to the hospital. She didn't even sleep. I could see it in her eyes, red, tired, but determined. She held my arm the entire way from the taxi to the hospital entrance like I might disappear if she let go. Inside, the smell of antiseptic filled the air. Nurses walked quickly past us. Machines beeped from distant rooms. And suddenly my illness felt very real. At the reception desk, Emily spoke before I could. My dad needs heart surgery consultation. We spoke on the phone yesterday. The receptionist typed for a moment, then paused. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. Sir, you were supposed to come weeks ago. I looked down. I couldn't afford it. She didn't respond. She just nodded and handed us a form. Emily grabbed the pen and started filling everything out for me. Emergency contact, insurance, medical history. When she reached financial guarantor, she hesitated, then wrote her own name. My heart hurt more from that than the illness. We sat in the waiting room for almost an hour. Emily kept pretending to scroll her phone, but I knew she was worried about the money. I was worried too, because even with her savings, we were still thousands short. Finally, a nurse opened the door. Mr. Harris. I stood slowly. Emily helped me walk. We entered a consultation room where a middle-aged doctor with glasses greeted us warmly. I'm Dr. Patel. I've reviewed your tests. I'll be honest, you came just in time. Emily tightened her grip on my hand. The blockage is severe. Without surgery soon, you may only have a few weeks. The room went silent. Emily's lip trembled. How soon is soon? Within days, he replied gently. I cleared my throat. Doctor, what happens if I can't pay right away? The doctor looked at me carefully, almost thoughtfully, then said, We'll discuss options with billing. He left the room. 10 minutes later, a hospital administrator walked in carrying a file. She looked at me, then back at the file, then at me again. Sir, I think there's been a mistake. Emily panicked. What mistake? We filled everything. The woman shook her head. No, not paperwork. She swallowed. Your surgery has already been approved. I frowned. That's impossible. It's fully covered, she continued. All costs. Emily and I looked at each other in shock. Who paid? She asked. The administrator hesitated. I can't say much, but a donor requested anonymity. They contacted us early this morning and insisted your treatment begin immediately. My mind raced. I didn't know anyone rich. I didn't have wealthy friends. And Daniel definitely wouldn't. Emily whispered, Dad, who would do this? I didn't have an answer, but at that exact moment, the hospital room door slowly opened. A tall man in a suit stepped inside, and the moment I saw his face, I realized this wasn't charity. It was my past, finally catching up with me. Thomas shook his head firmly. I owe you every tomorrow I've lived. Then he reached into his briefcase and placed a folder on the table. I didn't just come to pay the hospital bill. I frowned. What is this? He slid it toward me. An offer. Emily carefully opened it and gasped, Dad, this is a company contract. I looked closer. It wasn't charity. It was a position. Thomas spoke gently. I need someone I trust more than anyone to oversee our safety operations. I don't want an employee. I want the man who taught me what real leadership is. My hands trembled. After years of feeling like a burden, someone still saw value in me. But before I could respond, my phone suddenly started ringing. The screen showed Daniel, my son. I answered slowly. His voice sounded rushed. Dad, I heard you're in the hospital. Emily told someone. Listen, I need to come see you. It's important. I frowned. Why now, Daniel? There was silence. Then he said something that froze the entire room. Because the bank is taking my house, and I need your help. Emily looked hurt. Thomas looked curious. And I realized my surgery wasn't the only thing about to change. Part 5. Daniel arrives, but he doesn't come for his father. He comes for money. Part 5. I hung up the phone slowly. Emily was the first to speak. He's coming, now. I nodded. Thomas watched quietly, sensing the tension in the room but not interrupting. About 40 minutes later, the hospital door opened quickly. Daniel walked in, but he didn't look like the confident, successful man I remembered. His hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and his face pale with panic. For the first time in years, my son looked afraid. He barely looked at me. Instead, his eyes moved around the room, the hospital equipment, Emily, and finally Thomas in the chute. "Dad," he said quickly, "I need to talk to you." Emily crossed her arms. "You didn't even say hello." Daniel sighed impatiently. "Emily, not now." I raised my hand gently. "It's all right. What's wrong, son?" He rubbed his forehead nervously. "The business deal I told you about. It failed. The boat loan, the house refinance. Everything was connected. The bank is foreclosing. I have 2 weeks." I stayed silent. He finally looked at me properly. "I need help. Just a temporary loan. I'll pay you back, I promise." Emily stared at him in disbelief. "You refused to help Dad live," she said quietly, "but now you need him." Daniel's voice sharpened. "I didn't know it was that serious." I looked at him calmly. "I told you I might die." He looked away. I thought, "You were exaggerating." The words hurt, but they no longer surprised me. Then his eyes landed on Thomas. "Who is this?" Thomas politely extended his hand. "Thomas Reed, an old friend of your father." Daniel shook it quickly, distracted. "Dad, please. I know I messed up, but I really need this. I'll lose everything." I took a slow breath. For a moment, I remembered teaching him to ride a bicycle. His first day of school. The nights I stayed awake when he had a fever. He was still my son. But something inside me had changed. "Daniel," I said gently, "do you know what I needed from you?" He nodded quickly. "Money. And I'll get it for you too." "No," I interrupted softly. His expression confused. "I needed my son." Silence filled the room. "You didn't visit," I continued. "You didn't check on me. You didn't even call back after hearing I could die." His shoulders dropped. "I was busy." Emily shook her head. "No, you were comfortable." Daniel looked desperate now. "Dad, please. I'm begging you." I glanced at Thomas, then at Emily. For the first time, I wasn't deciding out of guilt. I was deciding out of truth. "I won't give you money," I said calmly. His face fell. "But," I continued, "I won't abandon you either." He looked up. "What does that mean?" I slid Thomas's contract folder across the bed. "I just got offered a job. A real one. If you want help, you'll earn it. You'll work with me. Start from the bottom. Pay your debt back yourself." Daniel stared at the contract. "You mean, actually work?" "Yes," I said gently. "No shortcuts. No luxury lifestyle paid by others. You rebuild your life, not buy it." He was quiet for a long time. This was the first time in his life no one was rescuing him. Finally, he whispered, "Okay." Emily looked relieved. Thomas smiled slightly. And I realized something important. My daughter saved my life. But maybe this moment would save my son's character. Part 6. The surgery begins, and Daniel faces the first real test of his life. Part 6. The surgery. 2 days later, I was lying on a hospital bed staring at the ceiling lights. The surgery was scheduled for early morning. Nurses moved around quietly preparing machines, checking charts, and speaking in calm voices. The kind of calm that only exists when something serious is about to happen. Emily sat beside me holding my hand. She hadn't left the hospital once. Daniel stood near the window. He looked different now, not relaxed, not confident, just worried. For the first time since he was a boy, he didn't know how to fix a problem with money. "I should have come sooner," he said quietly. I looked at him. "You came now. That matters." He shook his head. "No, it doesn't erase what I did." Emily squeezed my hand gently. "You can't change yesterday," she told him, "but you can change who you are tomorrow." He didn't respond, but I saw his eyes glisten. A nurse entered. "It's time." The words hit harder than I expected. They wheeled my bed toward the operating room. The hallway lights passed above me one by one. Emily walked on one side, Daniel on the other. Just before the doors, the nurse stopped them. "They can't go past this point." Emily leaned down and hugged me carefully. "You promised you'd come home," she whispered. "I will," I said, even though fear tightened my chest. Daniel hesitated, then did something he hadn't done in years. He hugged me too. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said quietly. "Not because I need help, because I forgot who you were." I placed my hand on the back of his head like I used to when he was a child. "I never stopped being your father." The doors closed behind me. The surgery lasted 5 hours. For Emily and Daniel, it felt like 5 years. They sat in the waiting room together. At first, silence filled the space between them, years of distance, arguments, and pride sitting in those empty chairs. Finally, Daniel spoke. "I bought that boat to feel successful," he admitted, "but I never felt proud of myself." Emily looked at him. "You wanted people to see success," she said softly. "Dad just wanted to see his son." Daniel stared at the floor. "I thought money made me important." She shook her head. "No, today proved what does." Hours passed. Nurses came and went. Then finally, a doctor walked in. Both of them stood immediately. Dr. Patel removed his mask and smiled. The surgery was successful. Emily burst into tears. Daniel covered his face, relief washing over him. "You can see him soon," the doctor said. At that moment, Daniel realized something. For the first time in his adult life, the most valuable thing in the world to him wasn't money. It was time. And he almost ran out of it. The end.